What's going on there, youths and youngins? What's going on there, little nephew? It's your big uncle. Come sit on my knee. Let me school you. So today we're going to school you guys about how to improve your life and how to improve your position. So off the top, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background about myself, how I ended up where I ended up, and how my frame of mind played a big role in my ability to go from point A to point B. And I'm going to kind of try to give you guys some tools and some advice so that you could follow the same pathway if you feel like you're stuck in a rut. And I have a feeling if you're watching this video, you're not watching it because everything's awesome, because the title of the video is How to Change Your Life. And the first step is to change your mind frame. So let's get started. If those of you who don't know me, my wife and I, we didn't go to like big universities. We're not from like really fancy like suburban neighborhoods in the United States. Our lives, were filled with different struggles and challenges, and we were able to take a position that was kind of in the negative and really turn it into something that is really positive and has really driven our lives forward. Now, the first thing you got to remember, guys, no matter how bad you think you got it, there's always somebody who got it worse. So you have to always keep in mind that you have some advantages, even if you don't believe you do. Even if you're stuck in a job where you hate your life, you're doing, mindless soul-crushing work, paying way too much to live, you're miserable with the society you live in. Trust me, I get it because I used to do it. I was a nightclub bouncer for 15 years, so I'm really good with people and with spotting trouble from a distance. And because I worked in the nightclubs, I was around a lot of street. I was able to see a lot of things and learn a lot of things at a very young age. And then being around that world for a long time, I was able to learn a lot as well. And, a lot of those lessons really, really served me well later in life. So I do believe that a certain amount of adversity, it does make a strong individual, and it can help you to, take that, disadvantage and use it as a motivating factor. Now, there's all levels to this, guys, because personally, I live in developing countries at the moment. I move around a bit, but I had been living in Vietnam for the last about 4.5 years, something like that, just around that amount of time. Now we're back again. I'm back in Vietnam again. But, it's a little bit of a long story, and we'll try to cover a little bit of it now, give you guys a little bit of an idea about who I am and what I was doing, and then how I changed what I was doing to make my situation better, and how I took these lessons I learned throughout life and tried to apply them to make my life better. All right, so first, off the top, guys, I did the nightclub thing for a long time. I was stuck in a mentality where I thought that this was the best I could do, and my mind was like really, really and in my head, I think it was a symptom of the United States and the culture in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people there who are very driven, they're trying to get done, but then, you have this system that just kind of makes it very difficult for you to really elevate in. People think that the US, the streets are just paved with gold. But when you look at what things cost versus what the average person earns, if you land a gig that pays a decent amount of money, you think that's the thing. And for me, the bouncing, it seemed like it was the thing, because I was making really decent money. I was getting a lot of access and a lot of connections. And I was always somebody who liked to talk to people. So I was able to turn a lot of those connections into money. It's something I've always been able to do since I was a kid. And maybe I'll do some videos on how I do that and like my thought process around, hustle and like how to make some money for yourself, especially if you don't have a whole lot, just by using the situation that you're in, your advantages to kind of leverage, something, that will eventually pay you out, right? So I was doing the nightclub thing. And for me, my thought process was simple. I was a bit of a hoodlum. I got into bouncing because I liked to scrap. I was strong. I had no direction. I was crazy, and it was like fun at the time, and it stopped being fun after years of doing it, with standing up all your back hurting, having a fight with stupid people. But there was a part of me that really thought that's like the best it's gonna be. Like getting like, $25 to $30 a night, an hour. You're making a few extra $100 a night in tips or in offs or in, little side things you got going. So I thought like this was it for me. But my mind was only America. You know, when I was young, I grew up mostly in New York. And in my early 20s, I went out to California. You know, and to me, that was the most radical place I had ever seen because it was so different from where I came from. It was like another planet, you know. And I spent a lot of time bouncing around the U.S. and, you know, for years and years, I would always, you know, I would go to places and then I would never really be happy. And I would always think, oh, well, the next place is going to be better and the next place is going to be better. And, you know, what I realized is once I finally got outside of the country that the U.S. culture just wasn't really for me. It's not that I think it's the worst country ever, because I don't. I think there's, you know, I've been all over the world. The U.S. is not the best country, but it's also certainly far from the worst. So, you know, I could have a life there if I wanted to go that way, but I just don't think that I would be happy. And I'm much more happy in these kind of environments where, you know, the rules are a little bit more fluid and, you know, so the people kind of get by on culture and on community and like food, and, you know, there's just a different kind of energy than this kind of like suburbanized, you know, compartmentalized like US culture that never really suited me well. So no matter where I went within the States, I was never happy. And I had family members would always tell me stuff like, oh, you just need to stay somewhere, you're never gonna settle down and you're never gonna be happy, every place is the same. And once I finally left the US, for me, that was a big eye opener. It was really the first time that I saw that I had different ways that I could live my life, and it wasn't just this one American way of living. So I've been living outside of the United States now for about 10 years. I initially continued doing the bouncing because I have residency in New Zealand. My partner's an Australian citizen, so we were living in New Zealand for a while, and we would go between Southeast Asia and New Zealand. We would make some money in New Zealand, then we'd go to like Bali and hang out there, or we'd go to Thailand and hang out there. But, you know, New Zealand was just another expensive Western country with a lot of the same things I didn't like. But, you know, because my mind frame was still very much like limited by what I knew in the States, I went right back into the nightclub bouncing out there and right into the and dealing with aggressive, stupid, drunk people and faked, superficial nightclubs and shitty people that occupy them. And I just went right back into that world because it's where I knew how to be. I was like a fish, you know, you throw a fish into water. And, you know, some people were good at programming computers. I was good at running a door, you know, and I did it for a lot of years, and I did make a lot of money doing it over the years. But the problem is I didn't have the right mentality. I was still very stuck on this dumb America shit. Didn't know whether I was coming or going. It wasn't until I started living in these developing countries and actually spending full time in Southeast Asia that I really started to kind of figure out who I am, what I want. I was able to use the advantages that I did have, having a US passport, being white, being, you know, physically fit, in between ages of 18 and like 60, right? Because I had these attributes, I was able to create opportunities for myself. But I could have easily ended up just still trying to work some nightclub or music venue or bar, because I know guys that are way older than me that are still doing it. I got friends who, you know, their parents are doing it. You know, I know a couple guys that are generational bouncers. I mean, you know, I'm not mad at you. You know, it was the game for me for a big part of my life. That had to change. That had to, you know, that away. You know, we can't be repeating the same thing for the rest of our lives, because that's how you really, really never elevate. You never move forward, and it's so easy to end up doing. So I would say the first step that you got to do is you've got to recognize patterns. You got to recognize that you're doing the same thing over and over and over. And then you got to ask yourself, is this furthering my goal of being happy, being successful, having money, having a lifestyle that I want to have? And if, you know, you're doing the same thing over and over, and this is kind of either keeping you stuck or not, you know, elevating you forward, then you got to assess whether or not it's really worth it to continue doing it, right? So for me, I had to get the out of the bouncing thing. And I had started looking into teaching English. So I was reading online what I could and trying to find out whatever I could about, you know, what it was like in Asia from people I had met that had been over there. I had been to Thailand a number of times, but I had only been to Thailand as a boxer. So I would go to a Muay Thai club, and that was pretty much what I did for the whole month. You know, I wasn't really out there in the society until later. I would go back to New Zealand and initially back to the States and then eventually back to New Zealand, and make money and then go back. And I would ask people, well, what's it like living over there? The ones who have done so. And, I started piecing together that, you could get into China and there was opportunities out there and you could get paid good money. And, I got the TEFL thing and of course paid way too much for it because I didn't understand the industry at the time. But, I went out and I was like, I'm going to try this English teaching thing because we had already been outside of the States and I had already been to Asia and realized that I really enjoyed the culture, the lifestyle, the weather. It was Southeast Asia was really, at this time for me, it was a very honeymoon period. So it was very much like a romantic destination, exciting. Everything was very different, but even to this day, it still is more comfortable for me than in my own home country. So, having discovered that, it was only a matter of time before I decided to find a way to make Asia full-time for me. I tried out China. It wasn't really something I enjoyed. It was too much of an intense situation, and I ended up going to Vietnam, where we had known somebody from when we were living in New Zealand. She had told us we should check out Ho Chi Minh City. One thing leads to another. A number of years later now, I help foreigners relocate to this part of the world. And it all started out by taking a chance and doing the English teaching thing. And I gotta tell you guys, working in jobs for most of my adult life, I was much more scared to teach English to a bunch of kids than I was to work a door at a rough bar in a bad neighborhood. Because I know what to do there. I don't know what to do with screaming grade 1 or 2, I did that for a minute. I did the teacher thing in Vietnam. And I was able to, build up a bit of a reputation for getting people jobs. And I figured out a way to make a little money doing that. And then my reputation grew and got bigger. And over time, I started to be able to help people do things with visas. And the next thing you know, we're in the pandemic. And now my business grows exponentially. All these people are trying to come to Vietnam because it was a very stable place at the time. And I was in a position and I had the right relationships. And everything happened because I was willing to break out of a mold. The mold of me just standing on a door like a because I thought that was the best that I could do. And if you're in a situation like that, the first thing you got to figure out is, am I happy? Is what I'm doing getting me closer to being happy? And, what can I do to improve? And for, this is a hard question to ask yourself because for some people, man, you make excuses for a million reasons why you can't improve. I know I would always have some rationale of why I should continue bouncing instead of doing something else. I was always very good at sales and, I never really had too much of the guts to go and apply for like a sales job. I'd much rather choke some out, who's trying to fight me in a bar. This was how my brain worked for the better part of my young adult life. But trying that English teaching thing in Asia, taking myself out of my comfort zone, allowed me to live in a place that I knew I was going to enjoy more than the States, right? I thrive on culture shock. I like places where there's a lot of things happening. There's constant change. The rules are fluid. Life is just in the moment. And that's one of the things I do really enjoy more about developing countries versus big, wealthy Western countries, like the US, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Western Europe. Like even when I was in Europe, I was more attracted to the Balkans than I was attracted to destinations like Paris or London. It's, just the way I feel, right? Now, I'm not saying that's the way you feel or that leaving America is the answer for you, but it's all about breaking out of what you think is impossible, right? So like, if at the moment you're stuck in a situation where you're not moving forward, like you're stuck in a job like I was, maybe you're working, I don't know, in a restaurant, in a bar, as, cleaning cars, doing whatever you're doing, right? Maybe, you're stuck and you need to just figure out what's next. Maybe you have some money and you just don't have confidence to do something with it. There's so many people in the West that have a lot of wealth and they don't know how much wealth they have because they're in the West. So you'll have these people who are working all day long, living in uncomfortable situations, but they have a US passport and they got a house that's worth like $500,000, but they're living like animals. It doesn't make any sense. With the kind of money they have, they could pick up, go to a different country, open up 2 or 3 businesses and have a apartment, still have a nice condo. You know, it's crazy, like, but it has a lot to do with people just kind of convincing themselves that they can't change, they can't do something different. There's always a reason why they can't change, why things aren't going to get better, why they can't move forward for some reason. Like, you know, you could be working in a position where, you know, you're getting older, you're thinking about retiring, you're thinking about going overseas possibly or doing something different. You know, and you keep finding excuses not to. Oh, I need more money. Oh, I need to do this, or I need to do that. You know, and there's this constant fear of like, what if, what if, what if, what if? But there's really nothing that says that if you picked up and went to a different place, especially a developing country with a strong passport, and you're from the US and you've got some capital, that you wouldn't be more successful in these places. It's a mentality thing. It's not based in reality, right? Like, you know, whether you succeed or fail really has everything to do with you. And the more advantages that you have, the more likely you are to succeed, you know? So that's what I try to tell to a lot of my customers who are thinking about becoming expats, and they're looking at opening businesses, or they're looking at doing some English teaching, or they're looking at, you know, doing something overseas. A lot of times what I'll try to tell them is that, you know, whatever you're trying to do in your own country, you can do it there, but you could probably do it here and then have a much bigger landing where you have more time, you can stretch your finances further, you have a better chance of doing something and having success because you don't have to worry so much about how much money you need to make right away. Now, that's just taking an advantage and using it. So you have to think to yourself, like, what are my advantages? If you're in a country where, you know, you're working every day and everything's crazy expensive, but you have a strong passport and you have a strong currency, then picking up and moving on is not necessarily the worst you can do. And I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing it more and more with the people who are in the digital nomad jobs, who are able to work remotely. They're all getting the out. You know, some of them are staying within the places like the States, but they're going to the rural places that are very cheap with the nature, or they're just boogieing all together and going down to South America, the Balkans, Southeast Asia, you know, and it makes sense. I mean, you know, if you're in a position where you got to pay like $2,000 a month to have like a shit apartment, it doesn't really matter if you're earning like a decent amount of money if like 40% of that is going to your rent, you know? So it's real easy to think that that's like the only way to live. And I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make. And whether it's economic, whether it's relationship, whether it's, you know, anything to do with like physical fitness, being happy, you know, the only way to really be successful is to be critical of yourself, but also to be consistent and to stick with things. So you want to take chances, but you also don't want to end up just floating around, because that can end up happening easily. That was happening to me in the States for a very long time. And even here in Southeast Asia, it took me a little while before I kind of found where I belong and my little spot in the world, right? I'm right now sitting on the 22nd floor of a beautiful high rise with a nice view over Saigon. And, you know, I started out when I first came out here working in, you know, shitty public schools and language centers and living in really, you know, like clean but small box-sized, you know, studio service departments, you know. And if I had never taken the chance to come to Southeast Asia, if I had never thought I could do something better than what I'd always been doing, I would have never been able to do this. But if I would have just kept moving and bouncing around, I also would have never been able to do this. So it was important to seize the opportunity when it's in front of you, but to also not get attached to things that are not making you happy. So if you're doing the same thing every day and you're not feeling good about your life, you're not having a lifestyle that makes you happy, you don't feel like you're healthy, you don't feel comfortable, then there's something that's going to have to change. And if you start finding yourself making excuses or rationalizations, you know, of why you can't change or why you can't do better, if you knew better, you would do better. And I'm going to tell you guys, you know, there's a million ways you can talk yourself out of being happy and convince yourself that you just got to keep schlepping on doing what you're doing. It's very important to break that. You know, you got to break the cycle of excuses and pull your shoes up and tie your socks. Because at the end of the day, ain't nobody going to pull your shoes up for you. You're going to be walking around and you're going to be all broke and stupid and miserable, and you gave up the better part of your life to make money and have whack broads and like facilitate whackness, you know, and that's where it ends, you know. Like I know lots of smart people who are skilled, they're artists, you know, talented people, play amazing guitar. I know people who are super good at managing other people's money but really bad at managing their own. I know all these people who have all these skills but yet they've never done nothing with them. And here I am. I don't think that I'm a person who necessarily has a tremendous amount of skills. I think I'm pretty good at talking. You know, I like to listen to people and I like to try to observe and understand the world we live in, right? I mean, that's part of the reason why I travel and why I want to see the entire world before I die, like as something that I really value, you know what I mean? But, you know, I certainly don't think I'm as smart as some people who can, you know, pass the Series 7 or, you know, program computers. But yet, I know a lot of people like that who have never really utilized the abilities that they have. And that's where the mindset is different. That's where I feel like I am dominant with the mindset, because I'm a hustler and I grew up having to hustle. I grew up having to always find a way to get money. And I was always pretty good at it. I was always able to find a way to get money. You know, and that's why I thought for so long that the nightclub thing was going to be the future for me. But, you know, looking back, it was a lot of wasted time and it was a lot of narrow thinking. And I'm just very thankful that I didn't waste more time and that I didn't, you know, and that it took me so long to just believe in myself and to believe that I could do something different. And not only could I do something different, within a little bit of time, I could flip that into something very profitable that is allowing me to be happy. And guys, I got to tell you, I'm happy. I wake up every day. I'm super happy. I love my life. You know, there's times where it can be very frustrating and it can be very stressful because I make a lot of my money through consulting. So there's dry periods, and then suddenly there's periods where, you know, it's very profitable, and then there's periods where maybe there's no movement, and, you know, I'm pulling my hair out sometimes, but I'm grateful because I'm living much better than a lot of people that I know and a lot of people around the world. And again, it's not that I was particularly intelligent, it's that I was able to take the tools that I learned from my life growing up in New York and having to grind and be able to flip that into something that's positive, right? Something that can maybe make my life better and make the life of my loved ones better. And that's really my long-term ambition, is to try to build something. Because, you know, I tell you guys, I listen to Dame Dash when he says that you don't make your money for you, you make your money for your last name. I mean, I probably butchered the quote, but you get the idea. It's you know, you got to take care of the people you love. And, you know, I've always been one who shows love. I've always been loyal. It's just the way I am. My friends in the States know, the ones who are really true friends, they know that I anything for them. And if they were to message me and need something, I would always be there for them. I used to let live in my couch, and I was just always the house that people could stay at. And, you know, it's just the way I was, like, you know. So I think that you can make yourself better and make life better for the people around you, sometimes just by showing them that you can break out of a mold. I'm trying to get focused on, like, man, what have I done wrong in the past where I was inefficient with time, where I wasn't doing what I could potentially do, you know, what was I doing wrong? And I'm trying to take an inventory and I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, what needs to be fixed now? I got this business, how do I grow this? How do I start something else? You know, because like I said, there was so much time making excuses. I can only do this, I can only do that, I can't move forward, you know? Or, oh, I gotta go to this place or that place because this place sucks and that place sucks. And, you know, for me, it was just, I was bouncing around a country that didn't really fit me. And like I said, I'm not knocking America. Like, there's a lot of good things about the States, and, you know, having a US passport has advantages, but, you know, it just wasn't right for me. And I thought the solution was just to go from city to city. And I had been traveling a lot through my early 20s, but I never had the guts to just get over the border. And, you know, I wasted 10 years of my life where I could have already been overseas and I could have already been moving around, and who knows what I could have potentially achieved. And I see it with a lot of people I care about who are older, and they're doing a lot of the same. They got a lot of the same excuses why they can't do nothing different, you know. And sometimes it's talented people, and, you know, you see wasted talent. You see people, like I said earlier, who, you know, play guitar, they can program computers, they're good with finances, but they're not good with their own finances, or people who live on credit, or people who value these material possessions over real wealth and life experience, right? I think that's the thing, that I don't like so much about the States is like, I feel like the whole thing is kind of a trap, and that's just, the way I see it. I know that other countries it's much worse if you're local, but if you're an expat, you interact with a developing country in a very different way than a local would. And, again, these are just some of the cards I was dealt that I was able to, utilize. And because I grew up in more of a street environment and I came up into the nightclub world in a very street environment, it gave me the knowledge that I needed to see Southeast Asia through the right lenses, like to peep it correctly, because a lot of people misunderstand it out here and they think that they're in their home country, or they think things work the way it works where they come from. But I had been around long enough to kind of see how things worked, and it really benefited me. And rather than getting stuck just being an English teacher, which could have been the next step for me, that could have been like, bouncer, all right, I found this English teaching thing and now that's it, this is as good as it gets, and that didn't happen, thankfully. Instead, I was put into a position where I was able to do some things, and it was able to benefit people, and my reputation became very good. And, I was able to really put everything I have into this business, right? And now I'm a workaholic, guys. Like I put everything, every waking minute I have is into promoting my business. I'm obsessed with being successful because I love my life right now. I'm presently bouncing around countries in Southeast Asia, building relationships for my consulting service so I can help foreigners move out here, start a new life. I'm living my dream. I'm gonna go post up for a little bit and upskill and get some content finished up in the next few months. So I'll probably be somewhere either in Thailand or back in Cambodia. I'm not sure where we're gonna end up, but I'm gonna go get a lot done over the next 6 months, and I have ambitions to expand my services all around the globe. And this all started from just breaking away from the mentality that I could only be a bouncer, and that was the height of my ambition. So, if someone like me, who's a regular person, who rationalizes, makes mistakes, has insecurities, finds things, excuses to not do things, if I can elevate, then you can definitely elevate. And like I said, man, I can speak. I was always okay at sales. I was very committed to being in the gym, physical fitness. That's something I've always had, because I always had a lot of anger problems and stress when I was younger. I'm a very wound tight kind of guy. So, martial arts, weightlifting, those kind of things were always like a core in my life. So that's one thing I really think I learned a lot from, guys, was building something into your life that even if your life is turbulent, which my life was very turbulent, can be consistent. So for me, that was always martial arts. It was always weightlifting. It was always, something to do with fitness. At first I was into powerlifting, and then I was eventually into strongman, and then I was eventually into Muay Thai, Thai kickboxing, and then eventually I got more into like kickboxing and boxing, and then I got older and I stopped wanting to get f***ed in the head, so I picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and now 8 years later I'm still doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've stuck with it and I've kept it in my life. Even though I've moved all over the world, I've made it a consistent part of my life. So I'm thankful for that, and I think that that's a way that you can really start to change your life, is breaking out of patterns that are not moving you forward and replacing those patterns with patterns that are constructive and are a way for you to manage negative energy, to manage negative feelings. Because I'm going to tell you guys, life is really hard and ain't nobody gives a. You want to know how little anybody gives a shit? You see like a 7-year-old selling lottery tickets on the side of a superhighway in Saigon. Nobody cares. You have to take the advantages that you have, and you have to make it work for you. Now, I wish the entire world could live in one of these, Scandinavian democracies, and everybody could have a wonderful life, but that's just not really the way the world works. So you have to take what you have and you have to leverage it. So I know there's people in America who think they have nothing, and they think, oh, I don't have any money, I don't have any opportunity. But because you're an American by itself, you already have much more opportunity than you even think you do. People are much more interested in you once you leave the United States, because nobody really knows what the is going on over there. It's a very, a very mysterious place that a lot of the world thinks, the streets are paved with gold. So it's very interesting, the way you can leverage, having a strong passport, the way you can leverage, being a native speaker like I did, where I was able to put myself into the English teaching that allowed me to stay long enough to figure out a niche, right? So it's just about taking what's available to you. Now, I'm not telling you need to follow the path that I'm following. Maybe you have entirely different ambitions, but these are just little things I can give you that I think can be helpful. Starting to build up positive habits, positive ways of managing stress and anxiety. Listen, no matter how bad it is, a little bit of exercise almost always makes things better. If you guys can build a habit and you can stick with something, then you can eventually master something. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for me was one of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned, that I can actually stick with something. Because I'm doing it more than 8 years now, and I've got all kinds of pain, injuries, I've had all kinds of good excuses to quit, frustrations and, having my back go out and things like that, but I've stuck with it. And, in my life, I was able to stick with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 8 years. I've been married to the same partner for 10 years. We've traveled the entire world together. We've lived a life that most people wish they could live. And, we don't come from wealth. Everything we have, we had to create for ourselves. We come from working class upbringing, right? So not the upper class, not the lowest of the lower class, but certainly not people who normally get to travel and live the way that we live. This was very challenging for us, and it was a period of us trying to figure out how to make this happen, right? Because we knew we liked it in Asia. We knew our lives were comfortable, but we didn't really have any vision for what we wanted, where we wanted to go, what our long-term ambitions were. And, we could have easily repeated the same patterns, because it wasn't just me, but it was my wife also. We kind of got stuck thinking that this is all we can do, and, what could possibly be past it, right? But the thing is, guys, you've got to always be looking at what's past it and what's possible and what can come next, because anything is possible. The world is crazy. And, sometimes just getting out there and putting yourself out there and taking a chance can really make a big difference. Now, you got to have your house in order, guys. You can't be running around, doing all and thinking your life is going to get better. I mean, things like physical fitness, exercise, trying to read books, trying to gain, knowledge in anything really. I don't even care what it is. Like, I'm a big fan of history and political science, so I read a lot of books like that. If you're interested in more like, esoteric stuff, or, things about, the universe or the world, then you should try to indulge in that, because reading really truly is something that keeps you in focus. Like, I try to read at least a few paragraphs of a book every single night before I go to bed. And that's another routine that I've been able to, for the most part, keep. I mean, every once in a while we're moving around. It's not always possible, but I keep a pretty consistent habit. And that's the thing, guys. I move around, I travel, my life seems very inconsistent, but there are some things that I'm very consistent with. And, making sure the things I'm consistent with are things that are going to improve me is the real first step to changing your life and to making things better. Now, even if you don't want to travel, if you just want to stay in the same place, that you can start just by kind of figuring out, all right, where am I stuck? Where am I making excuses? Where am I not moving forward? What habits do I have right now that are not helping me, that are not getting me what I want, whether it's money, financial success, women, or just self-actualization, or men, or whatever your case may be. Whatever your goal, your ambition is, you should be able to reach that. Life is very short. If you don't go for it, you don't know. If you take the easy way, which is doing the same over and over and over and over again and not taking chances, is very, very easy to blink your eyes and have 20, 30 years go by. So when I tell people build habits, start building positive habits, whether it's studying, whether it's martial arts, whether it's the gym, yoga, have a routine, try to get up a little bit earlier, try to make sure you're out of bed, a little bit earlier than what you normally do. You don't have to go crazy right away. You don't have to up at 6 a.m. every single day the first time and you're normally sleeping all day, you know? But little by little, if you make these improvements over time, it does get easier, guys. And actually picking up and just getting things done. And guys, I gotta tell you, I make all my money on social media, so I have to be on social media a lot. If you're not making money with social media, get the off social media. It is a waste of time. Unless it is directly making you money, you do not want to be on that. It's just like TV, and it's poison for your brain. Now, it's different if you're a journalist or if you're someone who gets your media this way. I understand that. I'm not saying you want to live in a world free of social media. Obviously, that's not the world we live in. But there's a lot of people who are on it for excessive amounts of time, and that energy could be put into something so much more constructive. It's the same with, you know, habits like drinking. To me, I don't drink. I do like cannabis, but I don't drink. And the reason I don't drink is because I feel like it's very destructive. With cannabis, I feel like I can still be physically active, I can still be productive, I can still move forward, and I don't feel like it really hinders my life. If anything, it helps me with pain from all the sports that I do. My joints are very messed up, my back hurts all the time, so I like CBD and I like cannabis as an anti-inflammatory. And I just would see alcohol as a detriment to my ability to train, to be healthy. You know, it's a depressant. You know, so I don't like to drink. I don't like to be around people who drink all the time. I don't really have fun while everybody's drunk. It's just not my cup of tea, you know. And I think, again, it comes from that background of being out there in the clubs and being around these dumb drunk and having to deal with that all the time. And, you know, coming from a street kind of element where I just see what happens when you have alcohol and, you know, stupid people, and, you know, it just almost always results in some sort of drama or negativity. You know, whereas what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have the life that I want to have. And, you know, I don't want to be doing anything that isn't furthering that goal, right? That's where my mind frame is. Like, I'm trying to push forward, you know, and, you know, things like drinking too much, things like running around with hookers, things like, you know, these negative, destructive behaviors, you know, when, you know, it just doesn't really move you forward, you know what I mean? Or, you know, staying in relationships where they're not healthy or where they're toxic, or working jobs where you have no real future that you're going to be wealthy from this, right? I mean, to me, the only reason you should ever do a job is to float you until you can do your own thing. And that's, I truly believe that the only way you'll ever be happy is to have your own thing. You cannot work for somebody else and really achieve happiness, because you're never going to work as hard for them as you would for yourself. And it's just, you know, that's my mentality. And I work my ass myself, and every time I had a job for somebody else, I was just looking at, how do I get money out of this? Like, where's my angle, you know? And, you know, that's what having that mentality really did kind of push me forward and make me more successful, you know? And now that I have my own thing, I can drive and I can grind, right? And now I'm not saying you need to do what I do. You don't need to copy my formula. You know, there's no one right answer to being alive or being happy. But you do have to go for what you want. And if you don't go for what you want, and years go by and you find yourself making excuses, oh, I don't have enough money, oh, I don't have enough time, oh, why would mine be successful if somebody else is already doing it? Then you're just making excuses, and you're just basically, you're setting yourself up to fail. You've already decided you're going to fail before you even tried. And now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you just kind of rinse, repeat, and it gets comfortable, you know? And that's how 10, 15 years go by, and you're still doing the same whack you were doing 10, 15 years ago, but now your back hurts, your knees hurt, you're getting older, you know, you're not really getting to do the things you want to do. So for me, like I said, guys, it's kind of like focusing on happiness. What do you really want from life? What do you value? How do you actualize that? Like, how do I get from point A to point B right now to keep myself doing what's making me happy? You know, having income, being able to work for yourself, these are all great things. They buy you time, but you really have to, at some point, you have to pick something and just run with it. You got to figure out what's your passion, and how do you make that a reality? I help people do that when they decide they want to live overseas, because I can offer them opportunities that they wouldn't have under normal circumstances. And I help people and I coach people through the process of picking up, quitting what they know, and moving to a different country. And I've been doing it now for a while, and my reputation's getting really good. And it's just something that I built completely from scratch, completely by accident, but just by kind of repeating some of the tools I gave you guys tonight, like building positive habits, stop making excuses, stop finding reasons why you can't be successful, and stop talking negative about yourself, because everybody is already out for themselves, and ain't nobody gonna be soft with you or kind with you. You need to be as kind to yourself as possible, because the world out there is harsh. So you need to have an energy that's like, I can be successful, I'm a good person, I deserve to be happy. You can't have this mentality like I'm a nobody, because then that's what the gonna be, and that's all you're gonna be until you flip that mentality. So there's a million people who will do nothing with their lives. There's millions and millions of people, but there are some people out there who will break out of the mold. And I've found that the people I met when I was growing up, a lot of them, they never were able to get away from what they knew and what was comfortable, even when it led to their own destruction. Whereas myself and a handful of other people that I know, they were able to move on and do something entirely different than what they thought they could do and they thought they were capable of. And I'm sure each one of us has our own story of how and why we were able to do something different than what we thought was originally our destiny. But this is mine. So I'm not pretending to be the mathematician, this is not Ram Dass. We're not educating the youths in how to spirituality. But what I am doing is I'm trying to give examples of how a working class person who was not particularly smart, was very much out on the streets, was able to take something, from just a couple years of English teaching and flip that into an international expat relocation consulting business that I was able to do through kind of changing the way that I think and focusing on, what do I really want from my life and how do I get to that, right? Because like I said, there's always gonna be people who tell you you can't do it. There's always gonna be people who tell you that, oh, you shouldn't try. But a lot of times you gotta understand, guys, that these people are weak, insecure, and they're also afraid to do the things they really wanna do. And it's much easier to you or to bring you down or to try to make you think that you can't be successful because they want you with them. But the reality is they're the ones who are not really going to be happy people. If you break away from that and you do your own thing, you're going to have much more opportunity to find whatever it is you're looking for in the world. Because people who don't make changes and who don't take chances, they're doomed to repeat, and if what you're repeating is not making you happy, then you need to get the from anybody around you who's telling you not to change that, because the years will just tick by like very quickly, and overnight it'll be 20 years will be gone, and you can look back and think of all the things you could have done, would have done, should have done, and man, you only get one shot at this. So start thinking differently, stop being negative, stop having people around you that are whack and are nothing. This is one of my biggest challenges when I was young, is I had a lot of good people around me. They were good people, they were cool, but they had nothing going for ambition, and they didn't know how to do anything. And even times when I had money, nobody had any ideas, nobody knew how to do anything, And I definitely think that that's one of the biggest challenges, is just not having that, I mean, not that you can't like say what's up to the homie, but if people aren't doing what they should be doing, you really can't be around that. You got to surround yourself with people who are trying to move forward, who are elevating, who are, they're innovative, they're having ideas, they can help, you to improve yourself, right? Because anything you do should be put towards improving yourself, guys. And I'm gonna tell you, this is how I am with my business. I put everything into it. I put all my energy, I dump everything I have into this thing, and I work constantly, right? And why do I do that? Because I'm passionate about having the life that I have, and I wanna continue, and I wanna make it better, and I wanna have my dream. I wanna have my property by a beach, maybe my small business, somewhere where the weather's nice, have some animals, and settle the after I see the world. This is all I want, right? And I want to have an interesting life. So I'm out there and I'm gunning for it. And I got homies back in the States who are cool and I love them, but if you're not doing something that's really moving you forward, it's like hard for me to have time for that. And now I'm not saying that they're not the homies. I love that I grew up bouncing with But right now, I'm really just trying to surround myself with people who are trying to do things, because that's where my mind frame is at. And I'm also very habit focused as well. Like, I'm very strict with my kettlebells. I'm very strict with my jujitsu, my diet. I keep a very consistent pattern in my life. And when it breaks up, it can be very hard for me and stressful. But I found that over the years, it really does improve everything, having these kind of positive, consistent routines that you maintain in your life, whether it's a relationship, a sport, a diet, a way, reading a book, doing things like this. So, and you couple that with surrounding yourself with people that are motivated and that are driven, and they're chasing whatever their dreams are. And then you push aside any kind of negativity, haters, fuckers, or even people you love that just try to disparage you and keep you from making changes. You can really put together a formula to be successful and happy. And there's no one picture of what's successful and happy. Successful and happy just means you wake up every day and you love what you're doing. It doesn't matter whether you're doing what I'm doing and you're traveling over the world, or you go somewhere and open a restaurant, or you're just happy with the perfect job that you wanted since you were a kid and now you got it. But you need to always be furthering that goal, because man, you only get one shot at this, and it's very easy to away 10 years, 15 years, drinking, making excuses, doing unhealthy things, hanging out with unhealthy people, on negative, worldview. And it's a trap, guys, and a lot of these Western countries are a trap too, and it's very easy to get caught up in them. Now, I understand that depending on your background, depending on what opportunities you had, maybe you don't want to travel overseas, but maybe you are stuck in the country you're in, and you're not happy with what you're doing in that country, and you're afraid that you're never going to do any better. This is the same exact mentality, guys. It's the same thing. I was stuck doing something that I thought was going to be my future because it's all I ever knew how to do, and it wasn't a bad racket. And I could just not see past it. Everything I thought of that was a good idea was related to some street. And in the reality of it, guys, it was a waste of time. It got me nowhere. And now, just taking a few chances, building a few positive habits, and trying to get, a routine in my life that's really constructive and that's moving me forward, and surround myself with people that are trying to do the same thing, has really been a positive thing. And now I live as a digital nomad. I'm not super rich, but I do okay. I can cover my expenses, and I've been able to save and make investments. I mean, I've got a loyal partner who works just as hard as I do on the business, and we put everything we have into this. And I think that that's one of the things that really, is important, guys, is being surrounded by people that are encouraging, that are willing to work themselves, and that they want to grind, they want to elevate, and just, surrounding yourself with people who are doing things and not whack individuals. So those are a couple of the tips I have for how to change your life. And, I'd say the first thing you got to do is stop being a I don't mean that male or female, just stop being a making excuses, and stop being a punk, and harden the because the world is not a soft place. Like, you see these kids running around from the rich liberal universities, and they can't handle any kind of disagreement, or they have to have safe spaces. I mean, these are people who, they're not really gonna do very well in a harsh world. Being exposed to more challenging things in life, things that make you a stronger, sometimes harder person. These can be really valuable things. And just because you had a rough upbringing or a rough life, or you come from a situation that's unfortunate, you have to remember there's always somebody who has it a lot worse than you, and you probably through those challenges had learned a lot of stuff about life that maybe some of these kids who had it very good through their whole lives will never learn, and now you could become bitter, you could get, from it, or you could leverage the knowledge that you gained from these life experiences to do something positive for yourself. So I'm talking to everybody, not just people who have a street background, but people who are from good families and they just have excuses of why they can't do things, and maybe their parents even have wealth. This is a mindset thing, guys. It's about rags to riches. It's about having the life that you have and you deserve to have. It's about, self-actualization and figuring out what's right for me. And I'm telling you, surrounding yourself with toxic people who make excuses, having habits that are destructive, like alcohol, processed foods, you know, not reading books, like consuming dumb commercial music and commercial entertainment. These kind of things, they do not push you forward. And honestly, guys, like, you know, everything I do throughout my day is focused on pushing me forward, because, you know, if you don't have that mentality, you are going to get eaten up, because you think that life is hard where you come from. Wait till you go visit a slum in Mumbai, or go to Nepal, you know, and see what real poverty looks like, you know. And people, you know, they're able to still take disadvantage and move forward. And that's something I learned in developing countries, is that people who have it much worse than you are still much more able to use the resources they do have. And a lot of them eventually are able to build their own businesses and become successful. And now there's things, you know, restrictions in our society and in our culture that prevent that also. But, you know, you do have different advantages. If you're from a Western country, you have a strong passport, you have more advantages than you think you do, you know, and you also have different opportunities than you might realize. You know, being around people that are doing that are positive, that are thinking about moving forward and having ideas, you know, these people might inspire you to have your idea. And it doesn't matter whether you're young, you're old, you know, just because you're older, maybe you're about to retire and you've just been doing the same bullshit, you're not happy, it's not too late. If anything, it's time. It's time to surrounding yourself with positive people. It's time to do the thing you've always wished you were going to do. It's time to start making good because you may not have a whole lot of time left. So changing your life should be a priority. And if you're not happy and you're stuck, then you need to do something about it. And you shouldn't sit there making excuses and crying and thinking the world's gonna do it for you, because it's very unlikely that it's gonna. Like I said, I am a bit of a bleeding heart. I wish everybody had housing, healthcare. I wish the world was a perfect place. But I've been out in the world, guys, and the world is not a perfect place. The world, it's completely crazy. And no matter how bad you think it is in your country, trust me, there's places where it's way worse. So no matter what, don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't make excuses. Don't waste time. Stop being a punk, and man or woman the and go for the things you want in your life. Stop surrounding yourself with negative people. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You can reach me on the Facebook fan page. You can reach me on the Instagrams. We're gonna have all the stuff in the description. I really appreciate comments, and I want you guys to let me know what you think. Like, what do you think you need to do in your life, you know, to improve it? Tell me what's going on that you're doing that you're not happy with, you know, and what solutions maybe that you've taken to improve your situation. And what do you think of my opinions on how to move forward? All right, I want to hear about it all in the comments. All right, so you guys take care of yourselves, take care of the ones you love, and live your dreams.
Brush your face and wash your teeth, son.
Hey, what's up? I'm D from Canada. Hook up with the New York Nomad if you want a smooth ride into Vietnam or any Southeast Asian countries.
Hey, my name is Aaron. Get in contact with the New York Nomads. If you want to get into Vietnam, hit them up. They'll get you in securely and professionally.
Yo, this is Uncle Hollywood. I'm telling you right now, the New York Nomad got me a job. He's legit. Hit him up. Check him out.
New York Nomad set me up in Vietnam.
Yo, my man got me a job. Come to Vietnam.
Hey, what's up, guys? You thinking about coming to Vietnam? You're not sure where to start. You've heard a lot of things online. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. We offer a consulting service where we help you get on your feet in Vietnam. We give you advice on negotiating contracts with employers. We help you with real estate agents, visa agents that are reliable and that you can trust. And we help you get started in this amazing country and get on your feet. We help you get into different opportunities that might be more difficult for you if you were just landing in the country on your own. And we help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems that you could have as a newcomer here. We provide you with reliable job recruiters, visa agents, real estate agents, and advice. If you guys are thinking about coming to Vietnam, hit us up for a consultation. We'll help you get started, help you get on your feet, and hopefully you'll love Vietnam as much as we do. Are you thinking of living, working, or investing in Thailand? Thailand is an amazing country that's more open than it has ever been before. They're a country that's looking into the future and doing some really radical things. It's an amazing time to be in Thailand, and there is a tremendous amount of opportunities for somebody who has an open mind. Who you deal with in Thailand will determine your experience to a great extent. If you do business with the wrong people, you can end up losing money and even in legal trouble. We have the contacts that you need to help you get on your feet in this amazing country and avoid all kinds of drama and problems that could come about by doing business with the wrong people. If you're interested in investing, working, employment, contacts for visas, contacts for housing, contacts for real estate, we got you covered.